He's not a Republican at all. The Texas congressman is the only Republican candidate who is a clear and harsh critic of the Iraq War, believes the Bush administration is violating civil liberties, and says Republicans haven't controlled spending.
This 12-term Republican congressman is known as Dr. No for standing up and saying hell no to big government. He's staunchly opposed to America's myriad of undeclared violent and costly wars. He's a proponent of sound money, and he's as furious as I am at the Federal Reserve for destroying the value of your dollar. And he's brave enough to fight the welfare and the warfare state no matter the political fallout. He's never voted to raise the debt ceiling, and he demands, like you and I, that the government balance its books, just like you and I do.
Representative Ron Paul has been a pioneer of fiscal conservatism, the face of debt reduction and small government, a hero to the Tea Party.
There is a hunger in the land for a game changer. Only one man remains faithful to the principles of free market and small government, to the Constitution and to personal freedom, to defending the nation without being the world's police force. Only one. You know who he is.
He is speaking truth. He has pulled the curtain aside and he has said, look at what these people are doing to your economy. Look at what they're doing.
So they don't have a very good record. They've ruined 98% of the value of the currency since 1913. And that's dishonest. That steals value from people by overtaxing, over-borrowing, and then we resort to printing money, which is destroying our monetary system.
The whole point is, why is our government so big? Why are we policing the world? Why do we have a runaway welfare state? And why is our dollar crashing?
Well, inflation is theft. You're stealing value from people who save money. So if you have a 2% or a 10%, the value of the currency is lost.
There's a very high probability that Ron Paul will walk away with this.
Every dollar that an American earns, how much do you think he or she should be allowed to keep?
Well, I didn't get to answer it. I'm delighted you asked the question because my answer is 100% because I don't believe in the income tax. It's a bad system of collecting revenues for the government.
If you were president, would you work to phase out the IRS?
Immediately.
That's what they call a softball.
And you can only do that if you change our ideas about what the role of government ought to be. If you think the government has to take care of us from cradle to grave, and if you think our government should police the world and spend hundreds of billions of dollars on a foreign policy that we cannot manage, you can't get rid of the IRS.
What I would do is allow the liquidation of debt to occur. You want the people to spend more money in buying up assets. You want these assets priced in the marketplace so we know what their values are. That's why that first package of
but no one in the market will do that. As you know,
then there's no value there. That's a good information, then there's no value. Why should you dump that on the American taxpayers? That's a strong message that if it's worthless, you don't dump it on the taxpayers. That's why our slump is getting worse.
Government bureaucrats and politicians are incapable of making correct economic decisions.
If you believe that the world will continue to take our dollars no matter what our debt is, Americans shouldn't have to work anymore because we just print all the money. If you love big government and think it can last forever, no, I can understand why you'd love the Fed, but
we live way beyond our means with a foreign policy we can't afford and an entitlement system that we have encouraged. We print money for it, the value of the money goes down, and poor people pay higher prices. That is a tax. It's a transfer of wealth from the poor and the middle class to Wall Street. Wall Street's doing quite well, but the inflation tax is eating away at the middle class of this country. We need to get rid of the inflation tax with sound money.
There is no authority in the Constitution authorizing a central bank, which means there should be no Federal Reserve System.
We need the government out of the way, but it should have sound money, low taxes, less regulations, and a sensible policy where we're not wasting our money overseas.
We do not any longer have national sovereignty. We have referred too much to the United Nations, the IMF, the World Bank, and the WTO, the NAFTA and the CAFTA agreements, and they should not be part of our system.
There is absolutely never a reason to give up 1 ounce of freedom for the sake of security. It won't work.
Don't we remember that when you sacrifice liberty for security, you lose both?
Achieve much more in peace than we could ever achieve in these needless, unconstitutional, undeclared wars.
Freedom, prosperity, and peace. The difference between military spending and defense spending, just because you spend $1 billion on an embassy in Baghdad, bigger than the Vatican, you consider that defense spending. I consider that waste.
How many years ago has it been since the Republican Party stood for getting rid of the Department of Education and getting rid of the Department of Energy? Where are we on that?
And you know, in the old days, we used to be against the Department of Education. Now we doubled the size of it. No child left behind. Even the Democrats are running against some of the things that we do.
But we can't cut anything until we change our philosophy about what government should do. If you think that we can continue to police the world and spend hundreds of billions of dollars overseas and spend hundreds of billions of dollars running a welfare state, an entitlement system that has accumulated $60 trillion worth of obligations, and think that we can run the economy this way, we spend so much money now that we have to borrow nearly $3 billion a day from foreigners to take care of our consumption. And we can't afford that. We can't afford it in the government. We can't afford it as a nation.
We have allowed our nation to be overtaxed and overregulated and overrun by bureaucrats. The founders would be ashamed of us for what we're putting up with.
About electability, do you have any, sir? There's always the question as to whether or not you are in fact viable. Your differences with the Republicans with the rest of the Republicans on this stage has raised questions about whether or not you can actually win the Republican nomination, sir.
Well, we've only had 2 little primaries so far, so it's pretty premature to decide which one is going to be the candidate. But, you know, when you think about it, if you measured everything I've ever said, every vote I've ever taken against the Constitution, you know, I'm a strict constitutionalist. Are you suggesting the Republicans should write me off because I'm a strict constitutionalist? I'm the most conservative member here. I have voted, you know, against more spending and wasting government than anybody else. So you're suggesting that I'm not electable and the Republicans don't want me because I'm a strict fiscal conservative? Because I believe in civil liberties? Why should we not be defending civil liberties? And why should we not be talking about foreign policy that used to be the part of the Republican Party? Mr. Republican Robert Taft didn't even want us to be in NATO. And you're saying now that we have to continue to borrow money from China to finance this empire that we can't afford? Let me see if I get this right. We need to borrow $10 billion from China, and then we give it to Musharraf, who's a military dictator who overthrew an elected government, and then we go to war, we lose all these lives promoting democracy in Iraq. I mean, what's going on here? And you're saying that this isn't appealing to Republicans? Where did this come about? I think this is a Republican message. I defend the platform. It used to say we got to get rid of the Department of Education. It doesn't say that. Now, we as Republicans went and doubled the size of the Department of Education. So where have we gone? I think we've lost our way. But then the insinuation that I am less Republican because of that?
Congressman, thank you very much.
Think I should compromise on the First Amendment? On property rights, on your property rights? Should I sell your house because a businessman wants it and he can pay more taxes? Why don't you want somebody to stand on principle? Why?
They want you to believe that patriotism means that you support everything the government wants. A true patriot defends liberty and the people. And just naming a bill the Patriot Act and voting for that doesn't make you a patriot. The true patriot will repeal the Patriot Act, is what they will do.
Just like we did in Iraq, build up the war propaganda. There was no Al-Qaeda in Iraq, and they have nuclear weapons, and we had to go in. I'm sure you supported that war as well. It's time we quit this. It's time. It's trillions of dollars we're spending on these wars. I mean, we stood up to the Soviets. They had 40,000 nuclear weapons. Now we're fretting day in and day night about third world countries that have no army, navy, or air force, and we're getting ready to go to war. I say a policy of peace is free trade, stay out of their internal business, don't get involved in these wars, and just bring our troops home.
Some of the strongest drug warriors in Washington, D.C. rant and rave about the possibility of a sick person using marijuana for their illness at the same time. But guess what? They have no hesitation to imbibe in that drug called alcohol. What does the federal government do? If you go out and plant hemp plants, you're going to go to jail. What's going on? And they'll tell you, oh no, it's a drug. Somebody might smoke it. But you know what? To get high on a hemp cigarette, the cigarette has to be big as a telephone pole. You know, they like to describe us being on the fringe and a little bit kooky now and then. But isn't that rather strange? We talk about these strange things like balanced budgets, personal liberty, privacy, a sound national defense, defend this country.
I sort of have to chuckle when they describe you and me as being dangerous. That's one thing, they are telling the truth, because we are dangerous to the status quo of this country. And we will remain a danger to the Federal Reserve System as well.
But above all, we need faith in ourselves and a belief and a confidence, understanding how freedom works. We have lost our way because we've lost our confidence. We believe the government will take care of us.
We once again have to have individuals who will stand up and defend our liberties. That is what we need. Freedom really is the answer, and fortunately for us, freedom is still very popular. And the people know that the system we have is not working. It's not working economically. It's not working monetarily. Our foreign policy is not working. And therefore, they're looking for answers. They will not welcome us with open arms. But there is a vacuum out there. And the vacuum is not in one political party. It is pervasive. It's throughout the country. And it's throughout the political system. Ideas spread. They can't stop them. An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army or any government. I sincerely believe our day is coming. It's only beginning. And it seems like even if they try, they can't stop us.
Ron Paul has established a beachhead for liberty. It's up to us to go ahead and take that beachhead and move it forward. Thank you.